Hey guys, welcome to Neurotalks Games, where I dive into the weird, the wild, and why did I think it was a good idea moments of gaming. Today we're tackling Phasmophobia, a game that will have you questioning why you ever thought being a ghost hunter was a dream job. Whether you're a seasoned spook chaser or someone who gets freaked out by their own shadow, buckle up, because this game doesn't mess around. So what's the deal with Phasmophobia? It's an indie horror gem from Kinetic Games that's been giving gamers nightmares, and yes, streamers played it to death, pun fully intended, but this game is still a scream. What really sets Phasmophobia apart from other games is how it mixes psychological horror with fun and occasional chaos of cooperative gameplay. You and your buddies get to play as paranormal investigators, which is the fancy way of saying you're all too broke to call the Ghostbuster. The game blew up not just because it's spooky fun, but because a bunch of streamers took one too many jump scares and screamed their heads off for our entertainment. This game taps into the weird fascination we all have with ghost hunting. You know, the thing we watch on TV but would never actually do ourselves. Sure, there were horror games before it, but Phasmophobia basically invented the genre of co-op ghost hunting, where the goal is simple. Figure out what's haunting you and make it out alive. Preferably with all your friends, but hey, no promises there. Since Phasmophobia hit it big, plenty of games have tried to copy its ghostly success. If you're curious about those knockoffs, similar games, let me know in the comments and I'll dive into them for you. I'll be honest though, I'm way too obsessed with this genre. I've sunk an embarrassing number of hours into Phasmophobia and spooky siblings, so if there is a ghost hunting game out there, chances are I've played it and probably lost some sleep over it too. The game takes place in various haunted locations where you and your friends get to play ghost detectives, creeping through the spooky spots to gather evidence. Evidence, you ask? Well, your job is to figure out which type of ghost is planning your demise, and then get out before you get majorly squeaked by some ghostly giantess. And no, I'm not talking about your ex. The gameplay mostly revolves around using ghost hunting gadgets like EMF readers, spirit boxes and UV lights to track down and identify whatever's haunting them. This approach was fresh spin on the horror games, shifting focus from just fighting or fleeing to a more methodical, evidence collecting experience. It forces you to interact with your surroundings in a slower, more deliberate, and let's be honest, completely nerve-wracking. This setup makes for a pretty interesting twist on usual horror game formula. You're basically powerless against the ghost, similar like you would be in some Amnesia games, and if it decides to come after you, no weapons, no special powers, and perhaps just a crucifix or incense that might help you. But hey, you do have an escape plan, compared to the same Amnesia game. Just hit that button in the truck and it will take you just back to your home and to safety. Of course you won't do that, because greed is a powerful motivator. You want the extra cash and experience points, so you stick around, poking the paranormal beer. And if you end up a ghost chow, well, that's on you, especially if one of your so-called friends decided it would be a great idea to mess with one of the cursed items lying around. Thanks, buddy. One of the coolest and one of the most unsettling features of Phasmophobia is its use of voice recognition technology. This means you can actually talk to the ghosts, ask them questions, taunt them, or beg for mercy if that's your style. It's a feature that cranks up an immersion to a whole new level, making you feel like you're really in a haunted house with something lurking in the shadows. The ghosts can even react to you chatting with your teammates, and if you say the wrong thing, you might just tick them off enough to trigger an attack. What's hilarious about this mechanic is the mountain of rumors it sparked. Players have speculated endlessly about the words or phrases might just set the ghost off, leading to some pretty funny moments. In some friend groups you'll find that something as innocent as saying pineapple pizza can suddenly make the ghost go from zero to murderous and come after you. The environments in Phasmophobia are masterfully designed to crank up the dread factor. The moment you step into a location, whether it's a quaint suburban home or sprawling nightmare-inducing asylum, you're hit with the overwhelming sense of isolation. The game's clever use of lightning, sound and layout makes every creak and shadow feel like it could be your last. These locations aren't just spooky backdrops, they're practically characters themselves, each with its own distinct vibe that forces you and your team to rethink your approach to the investigation. As you play, it becomes crucial to learn the layout of each map, from the spawn points of essential items like electrical panels and cursed objects to all possible hiding spots. And by hiding spots, I mean both the official ones, which might be blocked depending on the difficulty level, and the unofficial nooks and crannies where the ghost usually can't find you, unless of course you get really unlucky. Knowing the terrain could be the difference between making it out alive and becoming another ghost story. Hiding in Phasmophobia, let's say, is an adventure in itself. The mechanic is a bit wonky, which isn't too surprising given that the game was built with external assets and runs on the Unity engine. so it's got its fair share of quirky bugs. When it comes to hiding, these bugs can go from funny to downright frustrating real fast. On higher difficulties, they can ruin your game in a blink of an eye. Some of the so-called official hiding spots have these glitchy spots where the ghost can somehow still see you, and once that happens, you're toast. This can lead to some seriously rage-inducing moments, like when your whole team thinks they're safe in one spot, only for the ghost to wipe everyone out in one fell swoop, especially on nightmare difficulty or higher. It's a real test of patience and makes you question if maybe you just running out the door wasn't such a bad idea after all. What makes Phasmophobia so compelling is how it pulls all these elements together into a truly cooperative experience. The game isn't just about surviving the ghost, it's about doing it as a team, and that's where the real challenge lies. You can't just run around doing your own thing. Effective communication and coordination are key. Each player has a specific role to play, whether it's wrangling the tech gear, keeping an eye on the ghost activity from the safety of the van, or being brave or foolish soul who ventures into the dark to set up the camera in just the right spot. There's a ton of equipment involved in gathering evidence, and since your character moves at the pace of a snail and can't sprint for long, everyone has to pitch in. It's crucial to quickly find the ghost room and get all the gear set up so you have enough time to figure out what kind of ghost you're dealing with. This cooperative aspect isn't just tacked on, it's woven into the very fabric of the gameplay, making every team member's contribution essential to success. If one person slacks off or uses the cursed item that is provided on the level, well, it can spell a disaster for everyone. The slow pace and methodical approach in Phasmophobia create a horror experience that's quite different from usual fare. Instead of bombarding you with fast-paced action or relentless jump scares, the game builds tension through sheer anticipation. The real fear isn't about what's happening right now, but what could happen next. This suspense is what makes Phasmophobia such a nerve-wracking experience, especially when you're deep into investigation and the paranormal activity starts to ramp up. Playing solo cranks this fear factor even more. There's something about being alone in those haunted spaces that really gets under your skin. But even with friends, the game keeps you on edge. The unpredictability of when and where the ghost might strike, and the possibility of triggering an event that affects the entire map, keeps even the most seasoned ghost hunters on their toes. It's the kind of fear that sneaks up on you, making the game as much as psychological tension as it's about ghostly encounter. Lighting is absolutely crucial to the eerie atmosphere in Phasmophobia. The game leans heavily on the low lighting conditions to make you feel exposed and isolated. Dim hallways, flickering lights, and those shadowy corners you just know are hiding something all contribute to a constant sense of unease. The darkness isn't just a spooky backdrop, it's a key part of the gameplay that limits your visibility and makes you second guess every little movement you catch in the corner of your eye. Your flashlight, often your only reliable light source, adds to this tension. Its narrow beam gives you just enough light to see ahead, but not enough to shake the feeling that something could be lurking just out of sight. And when it starts flickering during ghostly encounters, that's when the things get real. Your lifeline suddenly becomes your source of dread. Sure, later on you can unlock night vision equipment which makes the lighting mechanics less of a concern, but don't get too comfortable, because when ghost is near, all your gear, including those fancy goggles, will start to flicker and you won't be able to understand where you're going. And running from a ghost with a flickering night vision feed is a special kind of horror I wouldn't wish on anyone. It's one of those experiences that makes you wonder why you ever thought ghost hunting was a good idea in the first place. Sound design in Phasmophobia is another key element that cranks up the tension to spine-tingling levels. The game crafts an audio landscape that's both immersive and deeply unnerving, with every ambient sound designed to keep you on edge. Whether it's subtle creaking of floorboards or those distant unexplained noises that make you question every decision, each sound is meticulously placed to mess with your head. Even the silence is terrifying, sometimes even more so than the noises themselves. The absence of sound can be the most nerve-wracking part, leaving you in a state of anxious anticipation, just waiting for something to shatter the quiet and send your heart racing. Graphically, Phasmophobia isn't winning any awards for cutting-edge visuals, but that's not where its strength lies. The textures and models might not be the most detailed, but they do the great job of conveying the sense of decay and abandonment that's central to the game's eerie mood. Each environment is rich with small, carefully placed details that help tell the story of the location. Whether it's peeling wallpaper in a rundown farmhouse or scattered debris in an abandoned asylum, these little touches pull you deeper into the game's world. And let's not forget all the interactive items sprinkled throughout the maps. You can pick up and carry all sorts of things with you, like the random bottle of wine you found in the corner. It's almost like the game dares you to bring a souvenir back to the van, as if it's gonna help you calm your nerves after the successful run, or perhaps not so successful. The ghost models in Phasmophobia are rarely seen in all their gruesome glory, and that's exactly what makes them so effective. They usually appear as distorted or shadowy figures tapping into our primal fear of unknown. The way this entity manifests, whether it's fleeting glimpse out of the corner of an eye, or distant shape caught in a flickering light, plays perfectly on the fear of things that lurk in the dark, just out of sight. This uncertainty about when and how the ghost will show up keeps you on edge the entire time, constantly questioning whether that shadow in the hallway is just a trick of the light or something far more sinister. And let's be honest, the tension is real when you're nervously waiting for a ghostly encounter, only to be taken out by a taller ghost that can barely walk. Nothing quite like a sting of being outsmarted by a pin-sized poltergeist to keep you humble. Now, as the game approaches the end of its early access phase, it's more polished and fun experience than ever before. Over the years, numerous updates have refined the gameplay, adding depth and excitement. If you are interested, I could dive into the many changes that game had undergone in a separate video. Just let me know. Thanks for sticking around to the end. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that bell icon so you don't miss any future content. Catch you next time.